It's the Undressed Show. Yes, it's Wednesday night. Undressed again. Recorded in front of an audience filled with the expectation and excitement of a young child on Christmas Eve. Yes, that youthful amazement we all have when we're back at Conroy's Emporium, where you can catch anything your heart desires. Now, my fellow Undressed, it's me, Jeremy Taylor, your host, and my job is to attempt to bring some semblance of credibility, a soupçon of amusement, and a light to the shadows of the mundane reality that's become our lives in the back of Conroy's. Yet, as we look around and reflect on what we did to end up here, it's not made any easier by the sure realization that we are here, in fact, voluntarily. Those rotting floorboards, the chairs with the nails sticking through the seats, those old steak fries and the creaking fans and no air conditioning that failed just after the Korean War. Ha! Happy times. But I digress on the naked but not undressed panel today. The very wise Dr. Orlando.
Hello.
The indefatigable Kathleen Taylor.
Can't say that 3 times.
The legendary Tyler Durden.
Mm-hmm.
And recently returned from Broadway, Donna, Kane, Swan. First, I know you all like to know what's been going on at Conroy's bar during the week, and as you know, Conroy talks to lots of different people. That's a constant source of amazement to me. The other day, Conroy, in one of his rare stints at the bar, found himself talking to a stranger. The stranger was wearing red tennis shoes, a white jumpsuit with the initials CP in the middle, a blue belt, and cape. White stars were on the cape. "Who are you?" Conroy asked. "Some sort of action hero?" "Well, sort of," the stranger replied. "I am, in fact, Captain Pragmatic." And so I was thinking about this as Conroy was turning around telling everybody he'd just spoken to a superhero. What makes a superhero super? Is it the ability to do improbable feats on a daily basis? Now, this particular guy, Captain Pragmatic, would be the most appropriate hero to arise. Apparently, he's a straight white male from Jersey City. He had a rough life growing up, and when he was young, he didn't have many friends due to the fact he would always iron his clothes. Little kids love wrinkles, so it was a sore subject. His life at home was a wreck, both literally and figuratively. Both his parents were hoarders. They never threw anything away. It reminded them of the time they had before Charles. Charles, Captain Pragmatic, was a mistake, and they didn't let him forget it. They'd been crushed to death by stacks of old newspapers. They died, and he was lonely and on his own. This led to him becoming a social worker. And it was during his job as a social worker that he was bitten by a radioactive something, possibly a gnat, and gained the special powers he's known for today. These include flying at 85 miles an hour, but he is only allowed to turn left. Apparently he can't turn right at 85 miles an hour. And most powerful of all, the ability to be sensible in a tough situation. He's often limited in his ability to decide which option of action is the most pragmatic, and of course the inability to turn right without doing a 180. His costume consists of red tennis shoes, a white jumpsuit, and the initials CP. Okay, Charles can fly and is well built, so he doesn't have the need for a utility belt like other kinds of tools. He says he tries to help anyone who needs saving, especially those too weak to help themselves. At the same time, he tries to change the behaviour of evildoers without hurting them, if possible, because violence isn't practical. I would be interested to know, Dr. Orlando, what's your view on this guy? I mean, is he? It's a bit strange to meet a real sort of live action hero in a bar like Conroy's.
He's, first of all, I think a little bit confused on what pragmatic is. That whole notion of not being able to turn left at any point, or only being able to turn left, and neither one of those really serves as...
Do you think he could if he wanted to? He just doesn't...
No, I think that he is confused by what the term pragmatic means at very best. So, and I don't think that that's necessarily bad or unforgivable, because I am not entirely sure what the term pragmatic means. When I read it, when I read this intro...
You are Dr. Orlando. I thought you knew everything.
This is the problem. When there's something that I don't know, I can't blame anybody else for not knowing.
That's our word later on. It's pragmatic.
Yes. Can anybody tell me for sure what pragmatic is?
Sensible.
Yeah, practical.
Practical.
Pragmatic.
And that's different from And you're meaning pragmatic in like the local sense, not the philosophical school of pragmatism sense.
No, just following the idea of like sensible. It's logical to do this. It just makes sense to do this, whatever this is. Like,
Yep.
for example, your point about the fact that he can only turn left and he can't turn right, that's not pragmatic.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, I just
You're
want
right.
no, and the reason I asked the question is because I want to be sure that I've got it right before I say that he's got it wrong.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to add something to that in the fact that pragmatism is also the ability to recognize the best choice out of many choices, the sensible choice.
Yep.
So actually, had he changed that to only being able to turn right, that would be pragmatic. If you are using right not as a, if you're not trying to, be a fancy way of saying political terms, and you really do mean turn right, well then always turning right is pragmatic. It will avoid accidents. It will avoid injury. There are many delivery companies in this country now that only allow their drivers to turn right because it saves them money, it saves them time, and it saves them injury
Well, maybe
to life and limb.
Pragmatic was thought up in England, where turning left is easier than turning right.
Exactly. Yes, that would be.
But my theory is that Russia had the use of Captain Pragmatic. The Russian space program had his use way before NASA did. As an example, NASA spent millions developing writing implements, pens, whose ink didn't depend on gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Russia used pencils.
Pragmatic. Yes.
Okay?
So, the problem with I agree with everything that you guys just said in theory. The problem is he's not driving; he's flying, and he's only turning right.
exactly. That's not pragmatic.
No,
And I would like
And
to
I
just
would
point
agree.
out, it's a
Yeah.
small point here, but it is an important one, that he couldn't have been Captain Sensible because there is already a Captain Sensible in England who's actually quite a famous pop star.
Captain Sensible.
Who might this
Captain
be?
Sensible, yeah. So I just wanted to point that
Well,
out.
now just think, just
A
all,
pop star
another
that
point.
apparently has not crossed the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one knows who the hell you're talking about.
If you can fly, all right, and you can only turn left, what is to keep you from turning on your back and turning left? That means you've turned right from where you were when you...
From your point of reference.
Yeah,
Why can't you just spin around all the way so that you're turning right?
you can do that too.
That's all you gotta do.
So for me, the whole question of this Captain Pragmatic dude is that he seems to be a little confused.
He is.
And so,
You're right.
So my follow-up question to that is, are we all confused? Or is it just me because I wasn't 100% sure that I was right about pragmatic? Is pragmatism in the
brain hurts.
I just say he's Captain Anal because he's
Well,
got
he
himself
doesn't
a
like
regiment to do.
apparently-
I will only turn left.
He was asked,
I'm
he
like, dude, you
doesn't
just got
like
a leader.
disorganized.
I
Relax,
like
man.
that. I like
He
that.
doesn't
I'm
like
trying
relax.
to figure out where the hoarding comes in and the ironing your
Well, no, the
underwear.
thing about the hoarding was
just, you're
apparently
Captain. I can
that's-
turn wherever I want. Just relax.
The hoarding was the issue that started this all off because his parents were hoarders, and one day a pile of newspapers that they had kept fell over and crushed the mother. The father went to save the mother, and another pile fell on him, and thus he was orphaned at the age of 23.
And so
However,
he was-
however,
23.
now if you asked an honest-to-God hoarder if hoarding is pragmatic, again, point of view,
No.
they would say absolutely because I am going to need all of this at some point in time.
Yes. And it's you see, that's a question as the young lady here who's helping us. Do you want another beer, or a
Or
bear?
bear, yeah.
Or bear. What is the pragmatic answer to that?
Do you... Now, when you want, there's no pragmatic. But
Yeah.
do you need... That you can have a...
I disagree. I think that there
Or
is
does
a
it solve a
pragmatic
problem?
Well, there is a pragmatic, again, if you put it in the context, do I need?
No,
I'm
no, no.
about to get in a car. Am I going to drive home drunk? What are my most sensible choices here?
Well, but I think that even if it's even without it being a need, if you define your want as your goal, if pragmatism in the everyday sense is defined as the best way to accomplish your goal, then you can be pragmatic about anything you want, anything you need, anything you like, anything you hate.
Well, I think Donna brings up a good point because it's all really kind of relative. It just depends upon your perspective upon a given situation. There is no black and white answer as far as what is pragmatic. Like everything else, it's all relative.
It's an argument that parents use all the time. You kind of it's pick your battles. That's being pragmatic.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
So then it is the idea or ideal that we have discussed thus far as pragmatism or being pragmatic, is that a major component of living in America today? Because it kind of sounds like it might not be.
Nobody here needs to be pragmatic. This is not a place.
That is causing headache right there.
Oh, I know, but in a country that is torn by war and is looking for food, and you have to be pragmatic about stuff. Here, in general, the society has so much stuff that we don't have to be pragmatic.
Got it. I wouldn't have come at it from that angle, but I actually agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because basically...
Yeah.
Whoa.
Captain Pragmatic is screwed here.
No.
No.
Because
I think we
there
have a
are
disagreement.
way too many people in this country who don't have everything handed to them on a silver platter.
No, you're
who
right.
Must
Not
make
everybody,
choices
but
all the time. You know, do I pay the food or pay the light bill? You know, you must make those kind of pragmatic decisions all the time, and there's a great deal of our population that has to make those kind of decisions.
Well, that is true. Do I cure my child's cancer or live in a house? Duh. Which are you going to do? Yeah, those are pragmatic decisions. You're right.
I think we've done this one. I mean, Captain
Yeah.
Pragmatic was kind enough to pop in and say hello to Conroy. Let's get on to our show for today. And we've got three basically actually quite serious questions which need a bit of thinking about, because clearly in the light of Brexit in England, the message coming from the UK is you Americans need to do a bit of thinking before you take your vote. Vote for whoever you like, but do a bit of thinking first. A space probe is very close to Jupiter. We as a nation spend billions on funding space exploration and the arts, yet we can't afford to fix failing bridges or help fund the failing VA hospitals or help our nation's sick or fund schools properly. Have we got our priorities wrong somewhere?
Well, duh. I don't know. Yeah, our priorities are wrong somewhere.
Are wrong somewhere, but I don't think they're necessarily wrong in the two things you mentioned. One, you said funding the arts. Bullshit. We do not fund the arts. The first thing that gets cut in any budget is the National Endowment for the Arts.
Bingo.
Why do you think your radio is pledging every other week and public television is pledging every other week, and your community theaters and your regional theaters
And
are
music programs
begging,
and art programs
begging
are being
for
cut
money?
from schools first before anything else.
First, absolutely. We do not fund the arts. As far as space exploration, it'd be nice if future generations have a place to go after we've completely destroyed this planet.
I like that. Although I was going to
This
make
is happy group. I like this.
Yeah. We are all cheers and giggles today. No, I don't think that we're actually funding science properly either. I don't think. I think that this is kind of a red herring question. It's like we either got $5 to spend on science or $5 to spend on schools or art, or no, we've got trillions and trillions of dollars that are currently going into the pockets of big business and
That's the point.
overspending on military.
Yes,
Clearly.
our priorities are wrong because our priorities are in lowering taxes and giving money back to rich people.
Yes.
That's
When-
the wrong priority.
And the bridges and the roads, you're right. They could be fixed pretty quickly by, addressing the gas tax.
Which would give people
our
jobs.
government will not do.
So people could feed children. Because we are the richest nation in the world, and yet 24% of our kids grow up in poverty. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You ask if our priorities are wrong, you betcha.
But the question, I go back to the question of priority is not one of do we fund the art or do we fix the bridges? I say fund the damn arts and fix the goddamn bridges.
Yeah.
You're
right.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you.
And
on
raise the
that.
money to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ah, so pay more taxes then.
Yeah.
without question.
Absolutely.
As the person at the table that is most likely related to the Walton family, that is full of the three of the top 5 richest
And
people
what
in the
branch
world.
of the Walton family would that be?
That's a secret. I can't really talk about it without going into a whole different story. Anyway, there is absolutely no way you can't tell me that those 3 of the top 5 richest people on the friggin' planet couldn't fund this simply out of the tax breaks that they're getting right now.
Yeah, right.
This coming from the person who has a brand new Mercedes parked outside.
Well,
Yeah, the
it's
reality
my
is-
Wednesday Mercedes.
All right.
That's got to be tough.
But what about the soldiers coming back from Afghanistan or Iraq, or even the guys who are still suffering
It is
with PTSD?
shameful. It is
What about
shameful
them?
the way that they are treated. It is shameful the government programs that don't exist. The fact that you have to have celebrities on television asking for money for veterans coming home for some private organization is just ridiculous. And
Okay.
the fact that Congress just allows this to happen, shame on them.
And it is directly Congress.
Okay, so old school pop culture, like this is from the, mid 90s, but I have always been enthralled with the movie Starship Troopers for exactly this reason, because in Starship Troopers, you basically weren't a citizen unless you served in the military. And without citizenship, you could live a full and happy life. Like there was enough wealth on the planet that it didn't really hurt you to not be a citizen. But if you served in the military, you became a citizen. You got priority on pretty much every facet of life. And I always thought that was a unique perspective. There were a lot of things about Starship Troopers that were kind of just freaky and creepy, like everybody in the show had a Spanish last name. So no matter how white you were or whether or not you lived in Minnesota, everybody was named.
Oh, you're going to make this a white thing now.
Well,
aren't
it's
you?
always a white thing for me. So it was. There were lots of
This
like
coming
little.
from a middle-aged white guy with curly hair. Yeah, right.
Well, it takes a lot of rollers and. Yes. Anyway, there were lots of subtle digs at society in Starship Troopers. However, the one thing that I always thought was cool is whether or not you could actually orchestrate a society where government service doesn't necessarily have to be military, but government service gave the people that were serving priority, not necessarily to say,
Yeah, it's called Nazism in Nazi Germany.
I'm not sure where you're going with this, because we have a number of countries on this planet that require military service simply as a fact of being alive, male or female. You must serve in the military. It's a shame Evo is not here to answer that question. Certainly it exists in Israel, but it doesn't give them anything special. It's just a
Right.
fact of their lives
no,
that they must
that's
serve.
kind of my point. Like the notion in Starship Troopers was that it was not mandatory. It was specifically that serving in the military gave you access to special privileges in life, which is, to my way of thinking, the opposite of the way we're doing it now. You go to the military and you are essentially
You only get to run for president if you draft dodged.
right, or you get the absolute worst in America's medical health care, as evidenced by the whole Walter Reed scandal. So what if the tables were turned on that? What kind of effect would it have on our society? Would it be the first step into Nazism, or would it go to making us a stronger
I
country?
certainly think if you've got a bloody great bug with a thing on the front of it, that it whacks the front of your forehead and sucks your brains out.
Huh?
He's
That's
seen
Starship-
Starship
He's
Troopers.
referring to Starship.
Oh.
Yeah.
If that's the enemy, I'm
What?
probably going to join.
The other good thing about Starship Troopers is that everybody showers together. So the Starship
That was awesome.
the Starship Troopers you see on video, there's naked women in it.
So the
then
the
Starship
one on the
Troopers
TV
were male
tomorrow.
and female could serve in the military. This leads to a different topic we've got later.
But I have to say, I have often wondered why we don't have in this country, and come to that in England, a national service. Now, I don't mean national military service, I mean a national service where people can go, you do college and then you join national service, voluntary. So you could learn...
Voluntary, but you got to be there.
No, voluntary. You can learn a trade like engineering. Go build bridges in America.
We
Work
have
in
had-
hospitals.
We have and we do have some things like that, the Peace Corps being one of them, but you're treading dangerously on a socialist idea that this country wouldn't go for.
Bingo. Capitalism and capitalists would not stand for that.
I can get behind that as an explanation for why we're doing it. I still wonder about. I guess the question for me is, how do we treat our military better?
Good question.
It's an excellent question, because the fact of the matter is we have never once in the history of the country, going back to 1775 when we first started fighting, we have never once treated military correctly, either during or after the conflict.
I think one
Happy topics.
would be take away the administration of the VA from having to be ruled by Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Congress decides to do nothing, nothing gets done.
Well, what about putting the loser of the presidential race in charge of the VA?
Oh.
No, just put the loser of the presidential race in charge medically. In other words, under their care, the rest of their life.
I think that it would actually go. I think that's a fantastic start. I think that should be the way that all government workers are treated.
I'd say just go to grassroots. Just start with society at large. Teach people to go up to someone in uniform and say thank you for your service. And that sounds very rudimentary, and it sounds like, well, I already do that. A large majority of people don't do that, and they don't understand to go up and actually thank them. And if you create this belief and this growth in society of actually thanking people and appreciating for that, then the people will stand up one day, look at Congress and go, hey, Congress, F you got to treat these people better.
I like it.
I saw a lovely article in the newspaper this morning.
Newspaper, what's that?
Four police officers were sitting down for a meal in somewhere like a Wendy's or whatever it was. And they were sat there having their meal. And another couple came in, and the lady went to seat them and was going to put this couple next to the four police officers. And they said, we don't want to sit next to them. And the police officers sort of looked sideways. So the couple went and sat down. One of the police officers paid for their meal. I thought, in many ways, I wish I knew where that police officer was, because I'd like to give him the $28 it cost him to do that.
Have you guys heard of the Picks for Peace social media movement? There's a couple guys out in Pennsylvania that just started this. If you haven't heard about it yet, you'll probably hear about it in the next week or so on Ellen or one of the morning talk shows. These guys basically decided that it's very much like you said, Tyler, that there needs to be a grassroots effort in order to reclaim the relationship between the cops and the people that the cops are supposed to serve. So these three black guys, all college age, just went down to their nearest police station and said, hey, we want to talk to a cop. And apparently this caused a major clamor within the police department. Like, they literally got their biggest, baddest cop to come out and talk to these three black guys. And the three black guys are like, we didn't do anything. We're not planning to do anything. We would just like to talk to a cop. So after they got the message across that they were actually there because they wanted to engage in a dialogue, the captain or chief, whoever the top-ranking official in the police department at the time was, came out and talked to them. Had a 2-hour conversation. Nothing was solved by the conversation, but it was impressive to the police that the guys came out and talked to the police just to try to start this dialogue.
The bottom line is, I think, and I'm going to have a rant now.
I'm not done.
Is that I thought you were finished.
Not even close.
All right.
The
middle line.
The bottom line was these guys.
No, I'm doing the bottom line.
Okay. The penultimate bottom line was that these guys took a picture with the cop, put it on Instagram, #PicsForPeace, and just suggested that everyone go out. And at first they were going to just do cops. Just go out, have a picture with a cop, get to know a cop. And they decided, no, that's actually not wide enough. We want you to go out and find someone that is different than you. And it's up to you to determine how they're different than you. You can find somebody that's a different race, different sex, different sexual persuasion, cop, however you want to define it. Just go out and talk to someone. Ask for the picture. Let that be an introduction to start a dialogue with someone that is different than you. Not to say that this is going to be any different than any other social movement like the Ice Bucket Challenge or anything like that, but this is maybe the first one of these that I've heard about where the emphasis is not specifically on moving through the social media sites, but it's actually engaging in dialogue with someone different than you.
Can the differences be political?
Absolutely.
I think what would be very interesting is the story that you told me about your life growing up in East St. Louis and places to avoid as an African American driving a car.
Well,
Coming to where we're broadcasting from now to go to college and then going back and immediately being stopped. I think what would be fascinating would be to have the police chief of this town, who was born in Lebanon and in Beirut actually, sitting in the back of that car and have you drive around and you get pulled over. And when the police officer starts getting, I want this, I want that, what have you, the chief leans forward and says, "Good evening, officer, my name is Chief so-and-so."
right.
I'd love to see that happen a few times.
Well, and I'm just going to quickly run through that story just in case anybody on the panel here or in the podcast listening area hasn't heard it. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois. I basically spent the first 15 years of my life there, went off to college at University of Illinois, came back, and did not realize how often it was that we were just tailed by the police, not having necessarily done anything wrong, but just having the police follow you for 5-10 miles. Literally, the distance that we are sitting right now, that's the distance our bumpers are apart from each other. And there's absolutely nothing that you can do after you've driven for about 10 minutes with the police crawling up your bumper, except make a mistake. So as soon as you make a mistake, then they pull you over. The first time this happened, I'm going to say weekly, monthly, somewhere in there when I was growing up, 15, 16, 17. Went away to college, came back, and I was gone away to college for about 3 years before I came back the first time. The first time I came back, I was so angry that this cop was because I hadn't dealt with that since I left my hometown.
Yeah.
I was so angry that I was literally shaking as I'm driving. Probably any mistakes that I made in driving were due to the fact that my hands were gripping the wheel as hard as I possibly could and was literally shaking. I was so angry. So, yes, I think it would always be interesting to have a police department or a individual cop that has a beef with the people that they're serving, deal with a good cop. The one thing that I've heard recently in the light of all the shootings that have gone on, against black people by the police and the blacks that are shooting the police, is that nobody's at fault. There needs to be a comprehensive solution. Everybody needs to work on certain things. And to a large degree, I would agree with that. I would agree that there needs to be reform from both sides of the argument.
Well, my argument is I think it's about bullying. That's what it's about, is that the certain police officers can get away with it. And I'm not suggesting that my life as a youth was blessed. I lived in a huge house and all that sort of thing. But I had very long hair, and I used to drive a four-wheel drive. And I got stopped very nearly every night on the way home from the theatre where I volunteered. And then I was at school.
Theater chicks, right?
Yeah, I was at school, sort of like a local community
You got
college.
it. Yeah.
And the police, the drug squad, were quite certain I was dealing drugs. And I wasn't. And I used to go and complain to my father about it. And he didn't believe me. And then one day, he happened to be a bit late. And there was the drug squad car parked just round the corner. And so instead of driving past it, I reversed back up into the driveway, back up into our house, said to my father, "The drug squad are there." And he goes, "Oh, ridiculous," he said, and stomped out of the house in his dressing gown, with his silk pajamas on, dressing gown, and his slippers, and he wandered down and around the corner, down to this little police patrol car, knocked on the window, windows wound down, drug squad officer there, and he said, "You police officer?" And the drug squad officer said, "Yes." And he said, "Stop harassing my son." And the police officer said, sort of words to the effect of, "Or what?" He said, "Well," he said, "in the time it's going to take you to get back to your police station, I will have spoken to the chief constable, who is a friend of mine." And he walked back up to the house and called the chief constable, who he was in Masons with, and I never got bothered by the drug squad ever again.
So it's awfully nice to have a father.
It's
who's in
awfully
Masons.
nice, but what I'm saying is it's wrong. It's about bullying. And so if you drive back in your nice new car today, and with respect, you're a black
Mercedes.
guy, right? And you're driving along and the police pull you over just for shit and giggles, that is wrong. It's wrong.
I agree.
There isn't any other, it's wrong.
Yeah, but
Actually,
I think
they
his
would
point-
automatically pull him over because they would assume he stole the car.
Exactly. And they
But
would
I
assume
think
he's a drug dealer.
Lewis's point
Yeah.
here is that there's no use in pointing out where it's wrong or who's wrong. Maybe we need to look at South Africa and look at their process of talking and reconciliation and stop blaming and simply talk things out and try to get back to a living arrangement.
Hang on. South Africa worked because you had a man named Nelson Mandela willing to talk. South Africa is not working now under its present leadership.
That's
at
true.
all. But I also want to say that there is a department in the United States that despite its unbelievably violent history, is starting to work, although it's taken them 14 years to get to where they are, and that's Watts. They have gone
Yeah.
back to community policing, and the first thing they did, took away the police cars and made everybody start walking the beat again, knowing who they were working with, knowing all the faces. And is every day 100% successful? No, but they're making more gains than losses.
Right.
So I agree with you, and I have actually suggested this to a couple of police friends of mine. You would be completely disheartened by the belly aching laughter that they have at the prospect of walking
Yeah.
in the areas that they are
Yeah.
patrolling. Like for the police that I know personally, the police that I would actually call friends or acquaintances, that is anathema to doing
I
their
know.
job.
And you can trace the violence in New York City, my home, from the cops when they stop walking the beat.
Yeah.
Let's move on because we're still talking about the police. Recently, as everybody knows, a number of police officers were murdered in Dallas. And I thought this was interesting. Coming as a Brit as I am, it's the right of folk in Dallas to carry weapons, including semi-automatic long guns, openly in public. That's a fact of life. It is their right. The NRA's stance in their press release regarding the recent police murders in Dallas is that it is the right of law-abiding citizens to carry firearms for defense of themselves and others at all times. So my question is, when the police arrive, as they did, at an active shooter scene, and are being shot down and killed, as they were, then they see a man in camouflage fatigues running away, carrying an automatic long gun, which they did, and they chased him. Would they have been right in shooting him, which they did not? The police actually arrested the man, and the far right and the NRA are currently protesting that his rights are being infringed while he's gone into hiding. My feeling is you can't fix stupid, but there we are. I'm just interested to see what you guys think.
Can't you see the guy that was arrested there being Dennis the peasant? I object to you automatically treating me like an inferior. No, I think that this is for me the crux of the problem. The police have a job to do. It is an incredibly difficult job to do, and it is being made more difficult by people that are insisting
And
on...
the Dallas police would agree.
Oh, yeah. And there was a time when I actively hated policemen. I was a much, much younger man and much, much less nuanced in my understanding of things. But as far as I could tell, police were evil. growing up or moving to a place where I am not constantly harassed by the police allowed my understanding to grow a little bit and understand the necessity of having someone that can use force to enforce the laws. That being said, police are needed. Police are needed specifically in that Dallas situation, and they don't need a bunch of untested, untrained, unidentified yahoos messing up the program.
Absolutely, they can shoot back. Absolutely, without a doubt. Look at Miami. They shot and killed the man who went in that club. He killed nearly 50 people. They didn't have a bomb robot.
Right.
They went in there and they took care of it.
Uh-huh.
And you don't see people in Miami saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe the cops shot him and killed this terrorist who was killing 50 people."
Well,
I'm
not sure that that's
as a private citizen.
It's not an analogy. That's
As a private citizen, if someone is shooting at you, do you have a right to shoot back?
You want to ask somebody other than me.
As a private citizen, constitutionally, if someone is shooting at you, do you have a right to shoot back?
Actually, I don't think that's defined in the
Yes,
Constitution.
you do. Yes, you do.
Hold on, Tyler.
That's not defined in the
That's not
Constitution.
defined in the Constitution, though, is it?
absolutely not.
Defense of life, liberty, and the person.
Okay.
Well, is it?
But
I
the
have
right-
actually got a copy
You have
of
a
the
gun.
Constitution.
Someone is shooting at you.
Am I going to use it?
Yeah, are you going to use it and shoot him back?
Most definitely.
Or are you going to take the gun and set it down and go, you know what? Let's talk this out.
Right.
My bad. Let's all do is kumbaya. No,
Well-
you're going to sit there and shoot back. The police
No, I'm
have
going to blow
every-
both these fucking kneecaps off, and then I'm going to say, let's talk about this.
There you go. The police have every right to shoot back. They are people just like you and me. If someone is shooting at them, they have a right to protect themselves. Now, that being said, you all know how I feel about guns. Not a real big fan. But for God's sakes, if you are doing your job to protect and serve, and someone is shooting at you, hell yeah, you can shoot back. Absolutely.
I think the question, though, for this, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Taylor, is should we have some type of law or something that says if there's a shooting going on, you don't want to be there with a gun because you could very well be shot by the cops.
Well, it's the rule of you cannot run into a cinema and shout fire.
The problem is still so much larger. It's the fact that the guns are there to begin with. You should know. I'm surprised you are not talking
Agreed.
about this from
Totally
a point of
agree.
view as an Englishman.
Well, no, I'm
where
not.
There's
as
like
far as
almost
I'm
no gun
We
crime.
talk about this every week.
Yeah, we talk about this every week, and what I was trying to do was to come at this from a different angle. We have 330 million people roughly in America, and there are roughly 330 million weapons
Yeah.
in America. The reality is that the guns are not going to disappear. We might remove some, we might buy some and remove some, as they did in Australia, or they may, as they did in England, simply ban them, and you are going to do time if you have a gun. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be a grandpa or a 19-year-old. If you've got a gun, you're serving time. And politically, they don't want to do that, not because they don't like the idea, but they haven't got the prison space to do it. So you have to look at other ways of doing it. I advocate my own personal best thing is for the news channels. Someone may be going, could be Roger Ailes, who's about to lose his job. It could be put on the TV the remains of the people who've been murdered so that people actually see what a 12-year-old looks like having been shot in the head by an AK-47. Then the country would have something to think about and something to bitch about. That's what I think. But what I was trying to do was to say, are we, this old saying, if you can't fix stupid, ladies and gentlemen, you really can't. The fact that the Dallas police were chasing a Mercedes out of Dallas with two guys in it and a woman who had thrown a camouflage bag with long guns in it in the back of this Mercedes. They finally caught the Mercedes on the outskirts of town. And this other Yahoo, at one point they thought there were 4 people shooting at them. It was actually only one.
And the gun rights people are apparently complaining mightily that they arrested these people who had guns on the site of a mass shooting because their rights are being abused. This is the incredible moronic mentality of the NRA. It has no sense.
You asked the
We all know
definition
that.
of pragmatism. This is what he's suggesting, is that they're here, now find a pragmatic solution
Right.
to deal with it.
So I have a comment
See,
about
if
what you just
if
said,
you pay
Kath.
attention to what we're talking about in this show, you'll find it has a theme.
You mean it's not just for my entertainment? I thought
Right.
that was always
No,
the theme.
no.
Okay, so no, I think I think that we are possibly doing a disservice to the NRA when we say that it is moronic, that they are arguing that it is a violation of their rights, because I think the frustrating part of this whole situation is, according to the interpretation of the laws currently, they are absolutely right. It is a violation of this person who is lawfully carrying a gun around to be arrested for carrying a gun around, regardless of the situation. And this is the problem. I am not agreeing with the law, but I am saying that this is exactly what the law, as we are interpreting it right now,
incredibly
says.
stupid to think that they wouldn't be arrested when they're carrying a gun at the site, the same sort of gun that's being used by a guy who's shooting police officers.
Yeah.
Well, of course they're going to get arrested.
But I think that it's their duty, if they see themselves as upholding the ability for everybody to have a gun in any situation whatsoever, it becomes their duty to make sure that everybody can carry a gun no matter what's going on.
Huh?
I don't think they're being moronic. I think that they are being true to form.
Well, that's the same thing.
Okay. Okay, I'll go along with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's carry on the pragmatic theme with our last story today. This actually came from an article in the UK's Daily Telegraph, written by a lady, Kate Medina, who served as an active service British Army officer. She went through Sandhurst, which is the equivalent of your West Point. So she's,
Our West Point has no equivalent.
she's been
Booyah!
That's a view. Putting women soldiers, she asks, on the front line is dangerous. Blame the biology. Concerns have been expressed by senior military figures that male soldiers would feel the need to look after their female colleagues, thereby reducing their fighting effectiveness and in turn putting them more at risk. She asks, are we really ready to see our daughters gang raped, tortured and decapitated live on the internet by ISIL fighters? Because that is exactly what will happen if a female frontline soldier is captured in Syria. For terrorist or extremist organisations, any press is good in their worldview, and the more gruesome, disturbing and inhumane, the better. A captured female soldier would be gold dust for their global radicalisation campaign.
Did she really say gold dust, or was that just you being artistic?
No, that's what she said.
Okay, just checking.
So, I kind of have a problem with this in that it's so paternalistic. I know it's written by a woman, but it's still paternalistic.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Our daughters,
No, I think that
they don't belong
there
to
were
us.
there were African Americans right after slavery ended that were absolutely aghast that such a sanctified institution could be gotten away with. I
Yeah.
think that there's going to be women that
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, I think there's going to be women that miss the good old days of when women were treated as dainty little
You mean
flowers.
when women were women and men were men?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Every social movement we go through, that happens. I mean, the suffragette movement
Yeah.
is as loaded with people who were women who were anti getting the vote, as there were women who were. And when it comes to the military, I just think it's going to take years.
bit more.
If you have
She
the training,
seems-
male or female, then yes, you go to the front lines, and yes, you take your chances along with every other man or woman next to you.
She seems to think it's perfectly, better. Not okay, but better to see a guy getting
Exactly.
gang raped, tortured,
I was-
decapitated. What? Drowned?
To me, it's equally horrifying to see those videos.
But
Not
they
to
don't
mention,
call them
she mentions-
our men.
She mentions this whole physical genetic kind of issue, as though women are somehow worse at fighting, as though they can't perform in the field like men can.
have you ever seen
That
two
is-
women
that
fight?
is horribly wrong. I would take 50,000 women against 50,000 men in a heartbeat in a battlefield. In a heartbeat.
We good.
Yeah,
So-
I think
Yeah.
I think that the woman that wrote the article that you found is just a little bit soft in the head. Is not really the term
Sarah
I want to use.
Palin-esque?
Yes, okay, I'll go with that.
Even though she has served, she has actually served.
I don't care what she says. She's wrong.
Right. Okay. So, you know what? What we do need to be thinking about is, from Dr. Orlando, is the word. We'll come to that in just a second. To bring us all back to earth. Kathleen Taylor has again been somewhat dilatory. What's a good word? I like that. Dilatory in her reading of the media, and there are a number of stories. What stories are you missing that you need explanation
speaking of
for?
the military, the Army has tested something. Army tests genetically engineered blank
Hookers.
for new body armor. Well, that
Because,
would be
yeah,
interesting.
I think
That's
a good
what
one,
I would
yeah.
want to test.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome if it were skin. That would be awesome.
Genetically engineered skin for new body armor.
That'd be
What do you
sweet.
What do you think?
I am flummoxed.
Flummoxed. Oh, that would be
Wobbly
good
bits.
too. Yeah.
Wobbly.
Wobbly bits. Okay.
Wobbly bits.
Army tests genetically engineered spider silk. Spidey did not know that all he had to do to make a fortune was just, use his genetically modified spider web creating things and go all over the place, and he could have made a fortune.
Definitely more interested in genetically engineered hookers.
And actually,
I think it could have been quite something.
I think
huh?
even I would be too.
I think some of the ones that we have probably
Well,
are
ladies and
genetically
gentlemen, it has to be
engineered.
said, and just a sidebar here, Donna is slightly strange, and, there we are.
Yeah, and Donna's the only one on this panel.
Yeah, she's the only one who...
Well, how about the China building all its islands and then being put down by the recent ruling? They say China names number one villain in the South China Sea.
That's the United States.
Yep. Uncle Sam. China has decided. They've been told off by an international tribunal to say, get your stuff out of there. You can't just go out and claim everybody else's sea because you found some islands.
But the Philippines
and they decide
also-
that's all.
It is fair to say the Philippines
United States'
are reasonably
fault.
pissed off about it.
Oh,
but not
yeah.
that everyone's going to do anything about it. I think Tom Conroy ought to take a few of his bar staff and go and sort them out, the Chinese.
I think Tom ought to wash his
Okay.
hands first.
Now,
Yeah.
you
here's
got to put on
one
some pants first.
that
Yeah, that's true.
you will probably enjoy. Here, you show.
Okay.
Cleveland blank pumped for Trump, but brace for violent protests.
The police.
Cleveland Klan.
I would think
Cleveland
the police
something
as well.
are pumped for Trump, but brace for violent protests. It's not the police.
I'm going to go with
It's
Ohio
not the Klan.
Nazis.
No.
It's 8-year-olds.
No. It's,
Elephants.
and it's something that you mentioned earlier, actually. It's Cleveland strip clubs.
Hey, Opa!
They
Oh, there's a lot
think
of money
Trump
coming
is
in, 'cause got a
gonna
lot of-
be
yeah.
money, money, money. They love those
Yeah, but after
Republicans.
the violence, then you need something to help you cool down and
I guess
calm
so.
down. So
Strip clubs are psyched for Trump.
I think they'll make money regardless.
Oh yeah.
Okay, a side note, if there's one place I would go see Trump, it'd be in a strip club. Carry on.
Could you the glare
Well, yeah,
of
he
the
better
orange?
be paying.
Yeah, goddamn
I
right.
mean, yeah.
And the last one, don't
Ah.
panic, but a giant hole just formed.
Oh.
You got to get closer to your mic, dude.
Don't panic, but a giant butthole.
Not
No,
just-
giant hole.
Oh, sorry, I
Giant-
thought it said butt. It does say butt. Look, there's butt there. It's just in the wrong place.
Don't panic, but a giant hole just formed in the
The
Blank.
hold of the Vogon ship.
new.
Sorry.
In a golf course.
The sun. Did you know that we just found a big hole in the sun? Actually, it happens a lot. You can expect a lot of solar flares coming
Nobody
up.
even commented on my call out to Douglas Adams after you made the "Don't Panic" headline.
All right, yeah.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, we missed that.
So finally, as we've gone through this this whole thing today, we need to look, come back perhaps to reality here at Conroy's, where you can catch anything your heart desires. The Word with Dr. Orlando.
Brothers and sisters, we are gathered here today to learn yet
Hallelujah.
and still another new word. Although I have a feeling this one's going to be well known by at least a couple of the folks here. Today's new word, oscitant.
Okay, think again.
Oscitant.
Ossitant.
OSCI.
Are
we allowed to guess at it before you put it up?
What? Give me a guess. What is oscitant?
I think it is someone who is joining the brand new person who's just joined a satanic cult.
All guesses are wrong.
I think it is a small bug that
All guesses are
turns
wrong.
quickly.
All
It's an
guesses are wrong.
Oscillating ant.
Let me give you the multiple choice.
All right.
Okay.
And
Here comes the
I'm
multiple
noticing
choice.
that Donna's quiet because Donna already knows what this is.
Uh-huh.
She's completely aware. She's like,
That must mean it's got something to do with theatre.
it's got something to do with sex. No. Number 1 is calcified.
Yes.
Number 2, dull.
Yes.
Number 3, bearded.
You seem to be confirming that it is an adjective.
It is adjectival for sure.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, number 1,
I don't think there is such a word. Adjectival?
I like to make up words.
calcified.
You mean
Calcified.
like vegetable-y? I made that up the other day.
I can go with bearded.
I desperately want to say calcified because of the root of the word, but I'm going to
yeah.
go with her and go in a completely different direction and just for, shits and grins say bearded.
Yeah, no, I'm going. I think you're right. Shits and grins, bearded.
The answer.
Just before, I noticed that we have some people here. What do you think it means? Bearded.
We got a bearded?
lady. Bearded.
And a
Yeah,
bearded.
so the audience also think bearded.
the answer
calcified.
is
And the answer is
dull.
All of us
there
messed
we
that up.
It is
Okay.
yawning, gaping from drowsiness, or inattentive, dull, and negligent.
You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed, competing with porn sites all over the country. Thanks to our producer and editor Eric Holcomb, Tom Conroy, of course, for letting us do this every week. Do come and try steak fries, and for running probably the coolest pop or pub in the region. From me, your host Jeremy Taylor, thanks for joining in. Don't forget to check in on our shows live with me and Eric, the producer, on KLWN 1320, particularly Fridays and Saturdays at 9 a.m. Central, or go to the site Wednesday Night Undressed. Yay!